Who are bosses, boats, and Eckhart Tolle? We will find out the answer to those questions when we talk about the Connors, episode 10 for the season. Hey everybody, Dan here, and we're going to talk about the Connors. Welcome to Dan Reviews It, and we are on episode 10 of season 3, Who Are Bosses, Boats, and Eckhart Tolle. That is the name of the episode, and it is phrased as such because, as we'll find out, it leads into something that was discussed last week towards the end of the episode, and that is Jackie trying to get onto Jeopardy. That's why the episode title is phrased as a question. Before we get into the episode, though, if you are new to the channel, welcome. Do consider subscribing by hitting that subscribe button below. I'd love to have you aboard. And, of course, comment. I always love talking with you guys about these Connors episodes. So let's get into this one. A couple of main players not in this episode. Of course, we rarely see Michael Fishman as DJ, so that's no surprise. Although Mary was in this episode, which sort of threw me a little bit. She hasn't been in it too much this season either. But we were missing two of my favorite characters, Mark and Ben, both absent from this episode. Mark we haven't seen actually for a little while. I don't believe he was in last week's episode either, and the week before he had a small little role, but he hasn't had a storyline for a little while here. But Ben had a story last week. This week we just don't see him at all. So we're focusing mainly on Becky and Darlene at the Wellman Plastics Factory, plus something new with Darlene's character. And then we meet an old friend. We re-meet an old friend, I should say, in James Pickens, is it Jr., who plays Chuck. He has been a part of the Roseanne family since the very beginning. And he showed up here again as Chuck in this episode. First time, I think, in the season, but we've certainly seen him on several episodes of The Connors, and he was part of Roseanne season 10 as well for a little bit. I don't know if he's still on Grey's Anatomy or not. I know he was when Roseanne returned, but I haven't watched Grey's Anatomy in so long. I know it is still on, and there's a few players from the beginning still, including Chandra Wilson, but I'm not sure if he's still on or not. But anyway, I'd actually like to talk about that storyline first because it's my favorite of this episode. So essentially, he went into the drywall business with Dan a while ago. I forget if that was part of this recent thread of episodes as the Connors, or if that was a long time before or whatever. But the point is, he has been wise with his investments. He's saved properly, and as a result, he has made enough money to buy himself a boat. So he comes over to the house and talks to Dan about it, and really, is very excited about it, wants Dan to kind of be excited as well. And to be honest, Dan is a bit jealous of it, wondering how fair it is that he's the one who brought Chuck into the business, and he's the one who can afford a boat, not Dan. And so that starts a bit of a, I don't want to say rivalry, but, a little bit of a fight between the two of them. So much so that Chuck decides to basically end their partnership and gives Dan a bill for half of the equipment that they purchased under that business. And so Dan goes to visit him on the boat, check out the Anne-Marie 2, which, of course, a nod to the wife of Chuck's character, Anne-Marie. And, they sort of have a little heart-to-heart about things, and Dan realizes he was being a little bit unfair. And Chuck, sort of points out that, look, I never could have done the drywall business on my own as a black man. Nobody would have given me, a loan. Nobody would have done this with me. So it was a nice, touching moment between the two of them, because it's not something Dan necessarily thinks about. He thinks of Chuck as just a friend, and Chuck even points out that they really weren't friends when he brought him on. So I guess the partnership does go back all the way right to the original Roseanne, Now that I'm thinking about it, right? Because I remember they used to work for somebody, and then decided to go into business for themselves. I forget when, but I feel like it was fairly early on, maybe, because Chuck wasn't on that long. The first few seasons, and then sort of more sporadically after that. So I guess it was pretty early on in the Roseanne days. It's hard to remember, but I think that's what happened. But either way, um, they've been partners for a long time, and Chuck pointed out, look, we weren't really buddies at the time, which makes sense because I know Anne Marie worked with Roseanne and Jackie at Wellman, but maybe they weren't lifelong friends. I guess I had always assumed that everybody sort of went to high school together and this and that, but maybe they met Chuck through Anne Marie. Please let me know in the comments if I'm like way remembering this wrong. I guess they really weren't friends at first. But of course, then they talk about how over the years they have become very close friends. This was by far my favorite storyline in tonight's episode. I really have been loving the emotional exchanges that we've been getting from John Goodman and various characters. It's almost never the same character. Twice, not even in a row, but twice in the same season, even like just in the last few episodes. He's had a really nice moment with Ben. He's had some nice moments with Darlene, and Becky always. They sort of have the whole eldest daughter. She's always been more of a daddy's girl kind of thing. He always has nice exchanges with her. But yeah, I mean, everybody sort of gets a nice moment with Dan along the way. And this one was Chuck's, a character that we don't even see that much, but that I've always liked. We've been sort of hinting in this season about, maybe more than hinting, maybe flat out saying it in some of the B stories this season about Dan feeling a little threatened about getting older, being replaced, and these sorts of ideas. And even, Jackie points out to him that, look, you're never going to find a friend like Chuck. You don't like people. Who was the first person you called when Becky was born? It was Chuck. He got to the hospital first. Who was the first person you called when Roseanne died? It was Chuck. So, that brought, certainly, for me, that made me emotional. Thinking about, these guys have been in each other's lives for 45 years at least. I mean, Becky's a little bit older than me, so, they are certainly at this point lifelong friends, even if they weren't, didn't go to high school together or whatever. They've been friends for a long, long time. So, so it was nice to sort of have that moment with him. Look, we've actually had a few episodes, I feel like, recently where we have not evoked Roseanne's name at all. And we've had now a couple of Roseanne mentions in this episode, because not only does Jackie mention that, but then we had another mention from, I want to say, Becky and Darlene. Talking about Wellman Plastics. So, we're evoking her name again, which I think is always great in small doses, and they've always really done it well on the Connors. I really, they don't brush her under the rug as if she never existed, which I think by far the bulk of shows do. Once a character dies, they don't continually refer to that person. But again, I've said this many times, it's all about the realism on the Connors, and of course you're going to constantly bring up the name of your mother, your wife, your sister, who has passed on even 3 years now after the fact. So, but I love that great storyline there. Now, the other two storylines I am less jazzed about. The Jackie one is a pretty quick throwaway. I mean, that's really a C story, but Jackie, because of this herbal tea she drank last week that had some hallucinogenic spice to it, made her see the ghost of Alex Trebek, apparently, and he apparently told her that, we didn't see this in last week's episode, she refers to it in this week's episode, but the ghost of Alex Trebek told her, yes, you should go on Jeopardy, da-da-da-da-da. And so, there's a little exchange with Dan at the beginning of the episode about how she wants to take the test, and that Alex would have wanted the show to continue, and it was this very sort of odd moment. Roseanne has never really talked about Jeopardy, as far as I know, back in the day. So why we're bringing it up now, I'm not sure. I mean, look, the 80s were pretty famous for their sitcom stars going on various game shows. You remember, maybe Mama's Family going on Family Feud. A few different people went on Family Feud. Even into the 90s, Joey went on Pyramid. Actually, that might have been in the early 2000s of Friends. But yeah, we saw Pyramid there. And so, we always see that classic trope of people going on game shows. One of my favorite Cheers episodes, of course, where Cliff goes on Jeopardy. It just seems odd coming from the Connors, I'm not sure it made sense. I didn't really get any laughs from it. She keeps going with it throughout the episode, though. She has a bunch of books on the table, and, she's studying history and whatever. And it was just odd, I thought. So it's a C story, kind of a throwaway. We don't spend much time on it, so I won't spend much time on it either, but it didn't really do much for me. And then the A story is Darlene in her new position now as one of the bosses at Wellman Plastics. She is given her own office at the beginning of this episode. We see her old mentor Robin there giving her the office, and she is tasked with finding a secretary, a receptionist, whatever, assistant, I guess, is what they call them now. A secretary. How old am I? But either way, Darlene knows nothing really about giving interviews. She's barely done interviews in her life, so doesn't really want to do it, doesn't really know what to ask. So she asks very little of the woman that comes in, and she turns out to be kind of loony and, sort of a bit almost stalkerish too, and it turns out she made up her daughter to get some sympathy, to get the job, and this and that and everything. She starts firing off memos in Darlene's name that are making people angry. And Becky's the one who sort of tips her off to some of this, because Becky knows her sister, and she's like, there's no way she said this, whatever. Don't make eye contact with her. And Darlene was like, well, I like the sentiment, but yeah, I wouldn't do that. So it did actually lead to a few funny moments between Becky and Darlene, but the crazy assistant kind of thing, that has been done to death. I mean, we're talking about going back to the 50s in sitcoms, and I just don't think it was handled particularly exceptionally. I didn't think it was handled that originally, and it was very, very sitcom-y, and I usually don't enjoy those types of storylines on the Connors, and I didn't really on Roseanne either, which is why the last few seasons of the original Roseanne were so terrible, because they really did these gimmicky type things. And I sort of thought that a little bit when they got the chickens a few seasons ago, but that's actually turned out to be okay, because they, in true Connors fashion, they're never, they don't really leave plot lines on the floor. So they do actually bring up the chickens on occasion, and that's how Jackie met Luis's brother Neville a few episodes ago. So that's fine, whatever. But when they first brought the chickens in, I was like, man, this is going to be kind of hammy and kind of sitcom-y. But I've come to like that. But this one seems kind of like a one-shot deal. By the end of the episode, Darlene hires another receptionist that we hope, fills the bill a little bit more than her last assistant did. So it seems like kind of a one-episode bit there. But yeah, it is one that it did not work for me very much at all, So of the three storylines, the B is the only one that I really liked, and I liked it a lot, but the A and the C didn't quite compensate for it. But we did see, like I said, Mary. I said we would go back to her. Mary is in this episode a little bit, and we're proving again that yes, she does live at this house. We barely ever see her. We haven't for most of the season, ever since they decided, yes, she's going to stay at the house. We then didn't see her for the next 5 episodes. But she was in last week's, along with DJ. DJ was not in this one. But, she had a little bit of, I wouldn't say a plot, but she had a scene where she wanted to watch Twilight, and Harris, and the only time we see her this episode, is on the couch with that new boyfriend that we met recently, and they're kind of talking and whatever, and trying to get rid of Mary. But Mary is a Connor, so she sort of, plays the two of them and makes them uncomfortable enough that they leave, giving her the TV. And then Jackie comes in and sort of, they have a little moment about the Twilight movies. So, that's fine. I don't have a problem with Mary, and I think the gal that plays her, Jaden Ray, is definitely a better actress than Michael Fishman as DJ is an actor. So that's fine to see Mary, and I'm glad that they're actually following up on that. Yes, she does indeed live there. One thing I think is interesting, though, I wonder when they did decide that, because episode 2, the Halloween episode, was when they said, yes, Mary's going to live here, da 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 da. But production-wise, that was episode 307, which actually is right before the most recent 3 episodes. So maybe while they were filming the rest of the fall episodes, maybe they hadn't decided yet that Mary was going to stay there, and that's why she wasn't a part of it. I feel like they should map things out a little clearer than that, or a little further in advance than that, but that could be one reason why they didn't broach that subject again for many weeks, and then all of a sudden these last couple episodes, she's in and we see her, and yes, she is living there. So that could be one reason. I still don't really like it, but it makes a little more sense now when you look at the production order of the different episodes. So I don't know, but either way, that's fine that she's back, and that's fine that Harris has the new boyfriend that we met recently. It's good to bring him back. But yeah, I mean, no Louise this episode, no Ben, no Mark. So kind of bummed about that. A few of my favorite characters missing completely, and the A story with 2 characters I do really like, Darlene and Becky. A few laughs, but for the most part, I found that to be a pretty generic type of storyline. So, I teeter on this episode whether I think it's still a positive grade, because I loved the John Goodman and James Pickens stuff, but I don't know. I mean, is it a B minus? It is a C plus. It's definitely in that range somewhere. It's no better than that, I don't think. I think I'm actually going to give it a C plus. I think it might be my least favorite of the season so far, just because it did seem so generic. But I loved that emotional stuff with Chuck and Dan. I have to admit that. So that's if I were to push it up a little bit, that would be certainly the main reason to do that. But I think I've been a little bit light on some of these episodes this season, so I think we'll give a little bit of a harsher grade this episode, but I think this deserves it. So I will leave Who Are Bosses Boats and Eckhart Tolle with a C+. So that is going to do it. I don't see an episode listed for next week, so we may be going into another little break here. I don't know what else is coming up. I mean, all the award shows have kind of been pushed back a little bit, so I don't think it's like the CMAs or anything. Sometimes it gets postponed for an award show, but I don't know. Maybe there's just no new episode in the can yet. But if there is, I will be here with you to talk about it. And if not, well, then another week we'll do it. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.